She took my hand before I finished the sentence. I had said, "This is my girlfriend," and I hadn't even gotten to her name yet when her fingers slid into mine and she gripped them like I'd thrown her a rope over a ledge. The guy who'd been standing 6 inches too close to her at the bar took one long look at our hands, then at my face, then back at our hands, and decided he had somewhere else to be. He melted backward into the crowd without another word. Gone, just like that. She didn't let go. Not while the crowd shifted to fill the space he'd left. Not while I stood there, very aware that I'd just called my neighbor of 14 months my girlfriend without warning, context, or any prior conversation that could have remotely justified the word. She held on, and she stared straight ahead at the bar, and after about 15 seconds she said, at a normal conversational volume, "Don't take it back." I did not take it back. Her name is Nadia Osei. She lives in 4C. I live in 4B. We share a wall, a mail carrier who sometimes delivers to the wrong door, and 14 months of the specific. Careful intimacy of two people who are very aware of the line between neighbors and something else and have never discussed which side of it they're standing on. Until a Friday night in late October when a stranger at a bar made the decision for us, and her hand was still in mine, and I didn't know what any of it meant yet. But I knew I was not letting go either. This is the story of the 4 weeks after that, and why the line was never actually where either of us thought it was. I have to tell you about Nadia the way I actually knew her, which is sideways and in pieces, because that is how she let herself be known. Not evasive, she was one of the most direct people I'd ever met in any single moment. But she released information the way a good card player plays a hand. One at a time, never the whole picture at once. What I knew about her by October: she was a structural engineer who worked on bridge assessments for the city. She made very strong coffee at 6 in the morning, which I could sometimes smell through the wall. She had a laugh that she kept quiet in public and let out fully only when she thought no one was watching. And she had an ex situation that was unresolved in some way she had not specified, but that I could feel the shape of the way you feel a bruise without pressing it. What I did not know: the ex was named Marcus Webb. He had a key to her apartment that she had asked for twice and not yet received back, and he had a pattern of appearing when she was somewhere without him, and had not told him where she was going. I found out about the key the next morning. She knocked on my door at 7:40 Saturday, still in the clothes from the night before, holding 2 coffees. She handed me one without asking if I wanted it. She knew I wanted it. "He came to the bar," she said. I absorbed that. "After we left?" While you were getting drinks. That's why she stopped. Reconsidered, that's why the hand thing happened. I saw him come in and I didn't think. You don't have to explain the hand thing. I think I should explain the hand thing. Okay, she explained the hand thing, which was this. Marcus had a way of finding her at social events and inserting himself in a way that was technically difficult to name to other people. He was never visibly threatening. He was always warm, charming, and present in exactly the quantity that made leaving or ignoring him feel rude. He had a gift for manufactured inevitability, for making it feel like of course he was here, of course they should catch up, of course there was no reason for her to be elsewhere when he was already right here talking to her. She had ended the relationship 8 months ago. In those 8 months, he had appeared at 4 separate places she hadn't told him she'd be. "He tracks your location," I said. She shook her head. "He doesn't have access to my phone." "Does he have access to anyone who has access to your phone?" She went still in the way she went still when something was reorganizing itself. "His sister is in my contacts," she said slowly. "We're not close, but she comments on my posts sometimes. If I tag a location, do you have location on your posts?" A pause. "Sometimes I don't think about it." His sister feeds him. She looked at her coffee. That's a very deliberate system for someone who supposedly just wants to stay friends. It is. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He still has my spare key. I've asked twice. He says he keeps forgetting." That sentence sat in the room between us for a second. "That's not forgetting," I said. "No," she said. "It's not." I asked her if she felt safe in her apartment. She said yes. Because she had a deadbolt and a chain, and he had never actually used the key that she knew of. But she said it in a way that had a however attached to it, and I waited, and the however came out sideways and small, the way she released most things. I just think about it sometimes. Whether he has. I told her to change the locks that day. She said she'd been meaning to, and hadn't gotten around to it. I said I would call the locksmith. She looked at me over the rim of her coffee cup for a long moment. "You're very decisive about my door," she said. "You handed me coffee at 7:40 in the morning after he showed up. You wanted someone to be decisive about your door." The corner of her mouth did something that was not quite a smile and not quite something else. "Fine," she said. "Call the locksmith." The locksmith came at noon. New deadbolt, new spare key, one which she handed to me, not him. She did not explain this out loud. She just held it out and I took it, and we both understood what the gesture meant without saying it, which was probably the most Nadia thing that had ever happened in a series of deeply Nadia things. Marcus texted her that afternoon. I know this because she showed me the text. It said, "Saw you at Paxton's last night. Looked like you were there with someone. Are you seeing someone?" She showed me the text and then looked at me and said, simply, "What do I say?" I looked at the text. 8 months of showing up where she hadn't told him she'd be. 4 separate appearances. A key he hadn't returned. A sister who fed him location data. A question that was phrased like casual curiosity and was actually a surveillance check, confirming whether the man she'd been with was a real threat to his system or a one-night anomaly he could wait out. "Tell him yes," I said. She looked at me. "Tell him you're seeing someone and it's serious." "Is it serious?" she said. Flat, not a question. She was checking something she wasn't quite ready to name. "It can be," I said, "if that's useful to you." She thought about that for a while. Then she typed, "Yes, it's serious. Please stop showing up places," and sent it before she could edit it down to something softer. His response came in 40 minutes. "Just want to make sure you're okay. I care about you. Can we talk?" She showed me that one too. She didn't say anything. She just tilted the screen toward me with an expression that meant, "You see what I mean." I saw what she meant. We did not talk about what it means when 2 people agree to be something for the purpose of removing someone else from the picture, and whether that agreement has edges, and what is on the other side of the edges. We did not talk about it, because we didn't need to yet. What we needed was for Marcus Webb to receive a consistent enough signal that his system lost its grip, and that required a simpler set of decisions than the ones we were quietly not making. The first decision, she started leaving location off her posts. His sister could not feed what didn't exist. The second decision, we had dinner together Tuesday. Not for the optics, she hadn't posted anything. Marcus didn't know. We had dinner because it was Tuesday, and we were both home, and she knocked on my wall, which was the thing she did instead of texting, and I knocked back, which was the thing I did to say come over. And she came over. We ate leftover rice and some vegetables I'd found in the back of my refrigerator that were still technically good, and she told me about a bridge assessment she'd done that week where the underlying concrete had a crack pattern that looked catastrophic on the surface and turned out to be purely cosmetic, and I told her about a lease negotiation that had gone sideways. And it was one of the easiest hours I'd had in recent memory. That was the thing about Nadia. Sideways and in pieces, yes, but the pieces, when they arrived, fit. Marcus texted again Thursday. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just miss you. Can we have lunch, just to talk? She showed me. She was getting better at showing me without preamble, which I understood meant the pretense that these were two separate problems, him and me, was quietly dissolving. Don't answer, I said. She didn't answer. He texted Friday. Are you free this weekend? She didn't answer. He texted Saturday morning. Nothing heavy, just coffee. I'm in your neighborhood. That one, she answered. Because in your neighborhood with a key that still existed was not a text you let sit. She wrote, please don't come by. I'll let you know if I want to meet up. He responded within 2 minutes, okay. Just know I'm here if you need anything. She read that one twice. Then she set the phone down and looked at me and said, he's not going to stop. She was right, and I knew she was right, and I was already running the shape of what not stopping looked like when someone had a key, a willing informant, and 8 months of practice at finding ways to stay adjacent to a person who had told him to leave. He'll escalate, I said. Not violently. He doesn't do it that way. He'll make it so that the only way to make him stop is to engage with him. So I'm trapped either way. Not if we close off what he's using. She looked at me. You have an idea. I have the beginning of one. I need to know how his sister is connected to you specifically. What does she see? Nadia unlocked her phone and pulled up the sister's profile. Priya Webb, 31, worked in real estate. She followed Nadia, and Nadia followed her back, because not following back felt like a declaration, and Nadia at the time of the breakup had been trying to manage exits quietly. Priya had liked 17 of Nadia's posts in the past 6 months. Every post she'd liked had either contained a location tag or a tagged friend whose profile was public with location data. It wasn't an accident. Priya was curating. She wasn't just passively seeing posts, she was actively tracking which ones contained geographic information. Unfollow her, I said. That's going to signal something. Good, let it signal something. You've been trying to manage his feelings about the exit for 8 months. Stop managing his feelings about the exit. She stared at her phone for a moment. Then she unfollowed Priya Webb. 22 minutes later, Marcus texted, Did something happen? Priya said you unfollowed her. 22 minutes. Priya had screenshotted the unfollow notification and sent it to her brother in under half an hour. That was not a sister noticing something and mentioning it. That was a monitoring system with an alert function. Nadia read the text. She looked up at me. He has her watching me. Yes, that's... She stopped. Started again. I knew he showed up too often. I didn't know it was organized. There is a specific kind of stillness that falls over someone when something they suspected becomes something they know. It's different from the stillness of surprise. It's quieter and heavier, and it has a long exhale at the end of it. Nadia did all three. Then she said, What do I do? Document everything, I said. Every text, every appearance, every instance of Priya liking a post with location data. Screenshot, date, and save it. Not because you need it today. Because you may need it to show a pattern, and a pattern requires a record. She started that afternoon. She went back 6 months through Marcus's texts, through her own post history, through the like history, and she built a timeline on a shared document that she sent me view access to. I added the Friday night bar appearance, the timestamp, the name of the venue. She added the 3 prior appearances she could confirm. She added the key request log, 2 dates, 2 unanswered follow-ups, no return. By Sunday evening, it was 11 pages. She sent it to me at 9:30 at night with a message that said, "I didn't realize how much of my time this has taken up." I sat with that sentence for a while. Not the time itself, the fact that she'd normalized spending that much of it managing someone else's refusal to respect a boundary she had clearly drawn. I knocked on the wall. She knocked back. I said, through the door when she opened it, "You want to come watch something terrible on television?" She looked at me for a moment. She was in pajamas, hair up, the way she looked when she'd stopped performing for the day. She looked, actually, exactly like herself. "Yes," she said. She came in. We watched 2 episodes of a nature documentary that was supposed to be calming and turned out to contain a distressing amount of content about animals eating each other. We made commentary. She fell asleep on the far end of my couch somewhere in the 3rd episode, and I turned the volume down, and I did not wake her up. She woke herself up at 2 in the morning, looked around, said "oh" in a very quiet voice, and then didn't move for another minute. "You can stay," I said. She looked at me. "Or I'll walk you to your door. Whatever you want." She looked at the door. She looked at the couch. She said, "I'll stay," and she settled back into the cushions. And I turned off the lamp. And that was a thing that happened, and that I thought about for a long time after. Monday, Marcus sent 3 texts in 4 hours. I was in her apartment when the 3rd one came in. She read them and showed me the phone, which had become a shorthand. The showing without speaking meant she wanted me to see, and didn't want to have to describe it. The 3 texts said, in order, "Have you thought more about coffee?" Then, "I think we really need to talk." Then, 20 minutes after that, "I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think this new person knows you the way I do." That last one was the escalation I'd been waiting for. He wasn't showing up this time. He was trying to create doubt instead, trying to make his familiarity with her feel like an asset she'd be foolish to walk away from. "He's going to try to meet me," she said. "He'll keep pushing until I agree to see him in person so he can make his case. Or until he finds another way in." She absorbed that. The key. He's had 8 months to use it, and hasn't. But that was 8 months when you were single, and the goal was adjacency. The goal is different now. She was quiet. "You think he'd actually come into my apartment?" "I think he has a key and a reason to feel like his position is threatened, and a pattern of behavior that prioritizes what he wants over what you've asked for. That's 3 things I take seriously." She took them seriously. She called the building manager that afternoon and reported that she'd lost her original key and needed confirmation that the spare was the only other copy on record. The building manager confirmed the spare. She told the building manager that no one else should be admitted to her unit under any circumstances without her express same-day verbal approval. The building manager noted it. That left the key Marcus had. The original. The one she couldn't revoke from a distance. "He's going to have to give it back in person," she said. Or a locksmith visit made it irrelevant. She'd already changed the lock. He couldn't get in with his key now regardless. But he didn't know that, and a man who thought he still had access to a space behaved differently than one who knew he didn't. "Let him think it still works," I said. "For now." She didn't love sitting on that. I understood why. The knowledge that he believed he had access was its own kind of weight. But the alternative was telling him she'd changed the locks, which would tell him the new person was real enough to have changed the architecture of her life, and we needed him to underestimate that before he escalated. Tuesday, she got an Instagram message from Priya. It said, Hey Nadia, I noticed you unfollowed me, and I just want to make sure things are okay. I know Marcus told me you're seeing someone new, and I just hope you're happy. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. She showed me the message standing in my doorway, without even coming fully in, just one hand on the frame, and her phone tilted toward me. She's reporting back, she said. She's also checking whether you'll engage. If I respond, she tells him whatever I say. If you don't respond, she tells him you didn't. Nadia lowered the phone. There's no version of this where she's not his instrument. No, so I don't respond. You don't respond. She didn't respond. What she did instead, on Thursday, was file a formal harassment documentation report through the city's HR system. She worked for a city agency, which meant she had access to a process that created an official time-stamped record of a pattern of unwanted contact during and after work hours. She was not pursuing action yet. She was creating a paper record in a system that could not be edited later, with a date stamp that predated anything he might do next. I did not suggest this. She arrived at it herself on Thursday morning and told me about it after the fact, and I felt something I recognized as pride in the specific way you feel proud of someone who is learning that they are more capable of protecting themselves than they believed. That was smart, I said. I have 11 pages of documentation, she said. It felt like it needed a home somewhere that wasn't just a Google Doc. It does. She leaned in the doorway of my kitchen. She'd been doing that more, standing in the in-between spaces, the thresholds, like she was deciding how much further in to come. I had started finding this endearing in a way I was not examining closely. Marcus doesn't know about the HR filing, she said. No, he thinks he's winning. Right now, yes, good, she said, and something in her voice had changed texture. The careful management, the exit softening, it was gone. What was underneath was more interesting, quieter, and with an edge to it. Let him think that for a little while longer. Friday, 3 weeks after the bar. He made his move on a Friday. They always do, I think, because Friday carries the implicit pressure of a weekend. The sense that whatever isn't resolved before Saturday becomes 2 days of unresolved weight that changes the social calculus. He texted at 4:17 in the afternoon, I'm going to be in your building tonight. Can we please just have a 5-minute conversation? I think there are things that need to be said. I was in my apartment when she forwarded it to me. I read it twice. In your building. Not near your building. Not in the neighborhood. In your building. He knew the building. He could be planning to buzz from the lobby and wait for her to come down. Or he was planning to try the key. New lock. Key wouldn't work. But he would discover that. And the discovery would tell him she'd changed them. And the discovery of that would tell him everything he'd been trying to confirm, that whoever the new person was, she'd changed the locks for him. He'd know it was real. I texted her, don't go down if he buzzes. Don't respond to the text. I'll be at your door in 2 minutes. I knocked on her door at 4:20. She let me in. She was in the middle of her living room, phone in both hands, doing the calculating exit stillness. He might try the key, she said. New lock. He can't get in. He'll know. Yes, and then we'll know that he knows, and the pretense is over, which is actually better than where we are. She thought about that. You want it to come to a head. I want it to be finished. She looked at me. Are you staying? If you want me to. She didn't answer. She went to her window that faced the street and looked down. After about 40 seconds, she said, he's outside. A pause. He's looking up. I came to stand next to her. We were not touching. We both looked down at the man on the sidewalk who was looking up at the building with the practiced casualness of someone trying not to look like they were doing exactly what they were doing. He buzzed twice. She didn't answer the intercom. He waited 8 minutes on the sidewalk. I know because we both stood there, not talking, watching him not leave. He texted twice more. She didn't respond. He called once. She sent it to voicemail. At 4:37, he walked toward the building's side entrance. That entrance required a code or a key, and he had neither. The code was changed every 3 months, and she had never given it to him. He would have had to follow another resident in. We waited. At 4:41, her door handle moved. The deadbolt held. The handle turned once, then twice, then stopped. A pause. Then the handle turned again, slower, as if this time more careful applied to a locked mechanism would produce different results. Then nothing. Nadia was very still beside me. She had her phone in her hand. "Call the building manager," I said quietly. She called. She told the manager that someone was attempting to enter her unit, that she had heard the door handle, that she had previously reported that no unauthorized visitors should be admitted. The manager said he'd call security. 2 minutes later, Marcus's voice came through the door. Quiet, normal, the voice of someone who had found a warm and reasonable register for an unreasonable situation. "Nadia, I know you're in there. I just want to talk." 5 minutes. "Can you just open the door?" She looked at me. I shook my head once. She held my gaze and didn't say a word, which was its own kind of answer, and it was the right one. "Nadia, slightly less warm this time. I saw you at the window. I just need you to hear me out. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just..." A pause. He recalibrated. "I think you're making a decision without all the information." She unlocked her phone and started a voice memo. Recording, she tilted the screen toward me so I could see the red dot, the waveform moving with his voice. "The person you're with," he said through the door. "He doesn't know you. Not the way I do. I know that sounds like something I'm just saying, but I know things about you that he doesn't have the context to understand yet. You've been through things, and I was there, and he wasn't. And that matters, Nadia. History matters." She was recording all of it. Her face was completely neutral. The calculating exits look was gone. What replaced it was something I hadn't seen on her before. Not relief, not fear. Resolution. The kind that comes when the thing you've been quietly dreading finally makes itself visible and turns out to be something you can actually name. Building security arrived 4 minutes later. We heard the exchange in the hallway, Marcus's voice shifting registers twice, first to warm and reasonable, then to mildly indignant. Security was polite and did not ask questions about whether he should or shouldn't be there, because a report had been made, and the report was clear, and his presence in the hallway outside a unit whose occupant had not admitted him was sufficient. He was escorted to the lobby and asked to leave the building. He left. She stopped the voice memo. 90 seconds of audio, his voice clear and identifiable, his exact words on record. She sent the file to the Google Doc. She added the building security incident to the document. She noted the timestamp. Then, she sat down on her couch and put the phone on the cushion beside her, and let out the long, slow exhale I had been waiting to see. The one that meant the weight she'd been carrying quietly for 8 months had finally been put down somewhere outside her body where she could look at it. "He's going to try again," she said. "Probably, but not the same way." No. The key didn't work, and security was called. He'll recalculate. And the documentation is 90 seconds of his own voice recorded without his knowledge describing a pattern of behavior. In most jurisdictions, that's admissible in a civil harassment proceeding. She looked at me. "You know harassment law. I know enough property law that the adjacent fields aren't very far." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm going to send him one text. I want to do it now while I still feel like this." "Like what?" She thought about it. "Unclouded," she said. She drafted it. She showed it to me before she sent it. It said, "Marcus, building security has a record of tonight. The documentation I've been keeping goes back 6 months. I'm asking you one final time, clearly and in writing. Do not contact me, do not come to my building, and return my key by mail within 5 days. If any of this continues, I will pursue a civil harassment restraining order using the documentation I have." She sent it. His response came in 9 minutes. "I think you're being dramatic. I've never done anything to hurt you. This is an overreaction." She read it. She didn't show it to me right away. She read it. And then she did something I did not expect. She laughed. A short, real one. The kind she let out only when she thought no one was watching. And then she appeared to realize she was not alone, and she looked at me with an expression that was half startled and half not caring that she'd been seen. "Dramatic," she said. "He came to my building with a key that didn't work and talked through my door for 4 minutes. And I'm dramatic. People with a pattern of behavior they can't justify usually land on dramatic. It's almost impressive. It kind of is." She shook her head, set the phone down. She was still half smiling, and it was the realest version of her face I had seen in 3 weeks of incrementally realizing that there were versions of her face I hadn't seen yet. "Thank you," she said, "for the locksmith." The documentation, standing in my living room while he talked through my door. "You did the documentation yourself. You told me to start it. You did the HR filing yourself. You called the building manager. You made the voice memo." She looked at me steadily. "I did those things because someone was standing next to me who I wasn't going to let see me manage him. I let that land. You made me not want to go small," she said. "That's the thing." The key arrived by mail 4 days later. No note. Just the key in a small envelope with her name on it in his handwriting. She held it for a moment when she opened it. Then she held it out, and I took it, and she said, "Throw it away or keep it. I don't care." And I threw it away. He did not text again after the 5 days were up, whether that was the restraining order threat or the documented voice recording, or the simple arithmetic of a system that had run out of entry points. She didn't know. And she said she didn't need to know. And I believed her. What she did need, apparently, was to stand in my doorway at 9 on a Tuesday and say, with the direct simplicity she reserved for things she decided fully, "I've been thinking about the bar." "Okay," I said. "You said my girlfriend and I took your hand and told you not to take it back." "I remember. I want to know if that was just about Marcus." I leaned in the doorframe on my side of it. "Was it just about Marcus on your side?" She held my gaze. "No," she said. "Then it wasn't just about Marcus on my side either." She stood there for a moment. She had the look of someone finishing a calculation that had been running quietly for longer than she'd admitted. "You could have walked away after the locksmith," she said. "After the documentation. After security. Any point in the last 3 weeks. You chose not to. So did you. I knocked on your wall. Every time." She looked at me for another moment. Then she said, "I'm going to come in now. And this time it's not about Marcus." She came in. I want to be accurate about what came after that, which means I should tell you it was not cinematic in the ways these things usually are in stories. There was no music, no rain, no single perfect line. There was her sitting on my counter while I made tea neither of us really wanted, and a conversation that went for 2 hours about the bridges she'd assessed. and the leases I'd negotiated, and the way we'd both made ourselves small in previous things for people who didn't notice or didn't care. There was her showing me the full laugh at full volume for the first time, the one she kept quiet in public, and there was the moment I understood she'd stopped calculating exits. I am not a person who arrives at things quickly. She is not a person who reveals things in order. But 4 walls and 14 months and the specific impossible man who turned out to be useful for exactly one thing, clarifying what was already there, had gotten us, eventually, to the same place. She lives in 4C. I live in 4B. We share a wall, and a locksmith's receipt, and a Google Doc we never actually deleted, and a mail carrier who still sometimes delivers to the wrong door. Last week she slid an envelope under my door by mistake before she realized it was mine, knocked 3 times to signal it was there, and I opened the door and she was already walking back to hers, and she glanced over her shoulder and said, "Wrong door," and I said, "You're always at the wrong door," and she stopped walking and turned around. "Don't take it back," she said. I did not take it back. Have you ever had someone stand next to you in a moment that scared you, not to rescue you but just to be there while you handled it yourself, and found out later that was the thing that changed everything? And have you ever realized, afterward, that the person you needed most had been 6 feet away and 1 wall between you the whole time, and you'd both been waiting for something to make it obvious? Leave that story in the comments. The specific moment, not the general feeling. The exact thing that made it finally obvious. Subscribe if you're still here. Because every story on this channel is this: 2 people, 1 impossible situation, and the question of whether they figure it out in time.